Hi everyone, Paul here. It's been quite a while since I uploaded a video to the channel. Sorry about that. We're in this long period where we're basically having a lot of online meetings with our architect slash builder to design the house and also just send tons of documents to various banks and trying to get a mortgage loan. So in this episode, I think I'll talk about how to get a mortgage as a foreign person. You may be wondering, can a foreign person even get a mortgage in Japan? Do you need to be married to a Japanese citizen? Do you need to speak Japanese? Do they discriminate against foreigners? Which banks give the best interest rates? So I'll address all those questions and more in this video. Given the topic, I think there's going to be some new people visiting the channel. So if you're new here and you'd like to understand what my wife and I are trying to accomplish in Okinawa, check out this intro. My name is Paul. I'm an American living in Japan for 25 years. Join me and my wife as we relocate to Okinawa and build the home of our dreams from the ground up. If you love beaches, sunsets, and tropical locations, I invite you to subscribe and follow along. Obviously, your experience getting a mortgage in Japan totally depends on your background and profile. I'm American. I have permanent residency for many years. I speak Japanese well. I'm married to a Japanese person, but she lives abroad for work, so she's basically irrelevant for this loan application process. I have been at my current job for more than 8 years. I pay my taxes, national pension, and credit card bills on time. I can make a down payment if necessary. I'm also of decent health, not perfect. All these factors have a bearing on your chances of getting a loan, so everybody's case is a little different. Being a permanent resident and being employed at one company for a long time would usually make me a perfect candidate for a loan. Having said that, I've actually been rejected by my main bank, and that was for a reason that I totally didn't even anticipate, and they weren't actually very clear about it when they called me to reject me for the loan. So I'll save that story to the end of the video. You should know about this, so please watch to the end. Just like applicants, there are a variety of lenders. There are large national banks, the so-called mega banks like Mizuho, Resona, Mitsui Sumitomo, etc. There are regional banks, which may be more likely to approve you if you are a resident of that particular region. There are online banks like Sony, Rakuten, PayPay, etc. There are banks that are associated with retailers like Aeon Bank. Finally, there are non-bank lenders like Aruhi that make a business out of just doing residential mortgages. There are so many choices of lenders, and I have been surprised at how different each of them are in terms of the documents they ask you for and how quickly they will pre-approve you or not pre-approve you. The most important thing I can tell you is to reach out to as many lenders as you can to see which one truly fits your needs the best. Okay, right here, let me make a little disclaimer. Because every borrower is different and because there are so many kinds of lenders, what I can tell you here is only my own experiences with the banks that I've reached out to so far. I'm not an expert on banks or loans, and I cannot give you financial advice. There are no absolute answers. I urge you to talk to your friends who have been successful in getting a mortgage loan. Even if they're Japanese nationals, the process will be the same in most cases. And better yet, please ask your real estate agent for help. It's their job to make sure that you get a loan and purchase the property you want. And they have contacts with banks. They may even be able to speak to banks on your behalf in the beginning before passing you off to them, and it really helps a lot. I've also found it useful to look at the Japan finance section of reddit.com. Many Reddit users have posted their own experiences trying to get a loan as a foreigner in Japan, and it's really useful. Okay, now let's get to some answers. Yes, you can get a mortgage loan as a foreigner residing in Japan, and I haven't felt discriminated against by any banks I've talked to so far. Generally, a bank wants to see that you are a permanent resident of Japan, signifying that you are committed to living here. Many of the online application processes start out by saying that the bank will only lend to Japanese nationals or to permanent resident foreigners. Having said that, I see many people on Reddit saying that they have been able to get a loan even without having permanent residency. Perhaps they were able to show some commitment to living in Japan by some other way. A bank will never say that you need to be married to a Japanese national, but again, this is a factor that shows you have some commitment to Japan, so it may work in your favor. By the way, if you do not speak Japanese and need to go through this process in English, Prestia does offer its services in English. Prestia is the old Citibank Japan, and they were purchased by SMBC Trust Bank. One note here, my friends who are here in Japan in the capacity of the military on the SOFA agreement tell me that it's impossible to get a loan in Japan. That's because you're kind of basically economically invisible in Japan because you don't report your income and pay taxes to Japan. Aside from your commitment to living in Japan and not returning to your home country, regular income is the most important thing to the bank as they assess your default risk. Most banks want to see that you are employed at the same job for 3 years. Depending on the lender, I hear that there is some flexibility here. Unfortunately, you're going to have a tough time with most banks if you are self-employed, but don't give up. There's hope with the flat 35 loan, which I talk about a little later. Lenders are going to ask you to submit documents to prove you are employed and prove your income. For instance, your certificate of income and withholding tax from your employer, probably for multiple years. If you have income other than your salary, they will ask to see your tax returns. I've also been asked to provide my certificate of tax payment and certificate of annual income. These are documents that you can get from your city hall or local tax office. After your residency status and your income, your credit history will be the most important item of importance. Make sure you tell your lender if you have changed your name in the past. Finally, your health status is also very important. Most banks will require you to join Creditors Group Life Insurance. This insurance will settle your obligations under the mortgage in the case that you pass away during the term of the mortgage. Note that I have seen some people post online about being denied a loan because of health issues like high cholesterol. You may be asked to submit your annual physical checkup result, so if your company arranges an annual physical for you, make sure you go and keep the results. Okay, let's talk about types of mortgage loans. Mortgage loans in Japan can be up to a maximum of 35 years, but you must pay it off by age 80. I'm in my 50s, so my loan will be much shorter than 35 years. You can generally initiate a new loan up to age 70. Just like in your home country, there are basically two kinds of loans. With variable interest rate loans, your annual interest rate will change over the period of your loan as the economy changes. With a fixed rate mortgage loan, the rate remains the same for the entire period of the loan. Sometimes there are loans that start out as a variable rate, but you can choose to fix it for a period of time, for say 10 years. Variable interest rate loans bring the lowest rates. Right now you might get an interest rate in the 0.4 range. I've even heard a bank offer me 0.3% range variable. This is extremely attractive, and if you're like me, coming from America, the rates in Japan are so low anyways, even a fixed rate mortgage loan sounds fine to me. Right now it's around 1.4 or 1.5%. And with a fixed rate, you don't have to worry about your monthly mortgage payment increasing over time. If you are interested in a fixed rate loan, you should learn about the flat 35 loan. This is a fixed rate loan with a term up to 35 years offered through the cooperation of the Japan Housing Finance Agency and private loan lenders. The maximum loan amount is 80 million yen. It is meant to make mortgages more available to a wider group of people. For instance, while banks may make a judgment on your loan worthiness based on the number of years you've been at your job or the size of your company, this is less likely with the flat 35 loan. It is also easier for self-employed people to pass the application process. You are also not required to qualify for the group life insurance policy, so all in all, less hurdles to clear for this loan. Now on to down payments. It's very interesting to hear different things from my friends when I talk to them about loans. Some had to pay a down payment, some didn't. In my experience, one bank requires 20% of the full, home construction amount. Another bank will give you the best rate if you put 20% down, but you don't have to. And another bank still will pay the full loan amount, but only up to 80 million yen. Note that there is such a thing as a pair loan in which two people, like a married couple, can both apply for loans against the same property. So in each case, each party must pass the loan application process themselves. The benefit is that the combined loan amount will be much bigger than just one person applying for one loan. Okay, let me just remind you here that I'm not a mortgage expert. I'm just one guy trying to get a loan in Japan as a foreigner. So please do your own research, talk to your friends, and talk to as many banks as possible. The loan approval process starts with a pre-approval phase and then moves on to the actual loan application at the appropriate time. The documentation required at the two stages differs depending on the lender, but in general, in the pre-approval phase, they're concerned about verifying your identity, your income, and learning about your employment history. It can take as little as 2 weeks to get pre-approved, but might take a month or two if you have to provide other documentation on other income you have. Japanese banks generally really only care what your financial footprint is in Japan, something they can verify through your credit history and official documents, but they may accept information on any income or assets you hold in your home country. I myself did take the time to provide this information, just thinking it might strengthen my application. At the pre-approval stage, hopefully the bank will let you know the maximum amount you can borrow and a provisional interest rate. Of course, the actual interest rate can change over time leading up to when you sign the actual mortgage agreement with them. In the actual loan application stage, your plans with your land or your house come into play. The lender will judge how realistic your plans are and if there are any points of risk for them. You'll be asked to provide additional documentation on the land or house, for instance, the appraised tax value. If you're building a house, you'll need to provide the final floor plans and the actual construction quotation for building. You may need to provide additional information to qualify for any special interest rate discounts, such as things like solar panels. Application for the required life insurance program may come either at the pre-approval stage or at the final loan application phase, depending on the bank. As for myself, I have been rejected by 2 banks, and I have received pre-approval from 3 banks and advanced to the final approval stage for 1 bank. Even if I get final approval from this bank, I may continue to apply at more banks so that I'm sure I get the best interest rate and the best loan for me. My wife and I have purchased land in Okinawa and are in the process of designing a house with an architect/builder. This, combined with getting a permit from the city to build, could take us up to 1 year. Obviously, in our case, the entire process of getting the final loan approval is much longer than if we were just buying a house. In most cases, the banks want to have the final floor plans and the final construction budget. Only then can you move from pre-approval to the final loan application. Now, if you are building a house, you might not realize that you're going to need a bridge loan aside from the actual mortgage loan. The mortgage is for the completed house. You'll need a separate short-term loan to fund the construction of the house. Having said that, I have a friend who got a mortgage through SMBC, and they rolled the construction into the loan, so no bridge loan was necessary with them. If you are buying an existing house, the loan process can go much faster. I have not gone through the process myself, but I imagine that the home must be inspected to see if it meets current building codes, and you must provide details to the bank on any renovations you might intend to do using the funds from the loan. If you have any experience with this, please leave your story down below in the comments. Obviously, when it comes to choosing a lender, you're probably thinking mostly about who has the best interest rate, but here's some other factors that might influence your final decision on a lender. Do they offer a loan in the area where you want to live? For instance, a lot of lenders don't offer loans in Okinawa. How much is the maximum amount of money that they can offer for a loan? A lot of loans top out at 80 million yen, and the combination of your land and house might be much more than 80 million yen. Will they require a bridge loan during the construction of your house if you're building a house, or will they just roll that into the main mortgage loan? If there is a bridge loan, what are the fees associated with that? And are there any incentives offered by lenders for such things as energy efficiency or high-grade construction? In my case, I'm offered by one bank to get 0.5% interest fixed for 5 years because I'll have solar panels on my house. Okay, finally, let me tell you my story about how I got rejected by my main bank. This is the bank where my salary has gone into for more than 15 years. My main credit card I use is through this bank. If I transfer money from America to Japan, it goes into this bank. So this bank knows everything about my financial makeup here in Japan. Last year, I purchased land in Okinawa. Then I spent some time looking for a builder or an architect. And then after that was completed, I started to think about getting a mortgage loan. And of course, I go to my main bank, local branch, and I asked to speak to them about a mortgage loan. They immediately told me to go to their homepage and apply through their online portal. This is one of those large national banks, a mega bank. They have internet banking, so they said go to the online portal and apply there. So I go, I make a mortgage loan account there, and I start uploading documents like my ID, information on my salary and my employer, and information about the land I purchased in Okinawa, and also my provisional, building budget that the builder provided for me. After that, I kind of expected that they would contact me through the portal asking for additional documents or give me questions about my application. Week goes by and I don't hear from them. And then after 2 weeks, I get a call from the bank branch, and the loan center person just tells me that my application has been rejected. And of course I asked why, and she said that they don't do loans where it's just land as collateral. And this doesn't make sense because I'm going to build a house and the loan is going to be against the house, so the house and land will be the collateral for the loan. So this just didn't make sense to me. But on the other hand, when you go through this application process, you agree that you will accept the final decision of the bank, so you really can't argue. So I was baffled to be rejected by my main bank, and it was only over time, little by little, speaking to other lenders that I finally understand the reasons that they rejected me. For instance, I met with a non-bank lender salesperson face to face. We sat down and had coffee and talked about the loan, and he introduced the loan products to me, and he was able to ask me questions directly. I spoke to a regional bank in Okinawa over the phone several times and was able to ask a lot of questions of them, and they asked questions of me. And I noticed that these lenders, when they talked to me, they always said, what's my connection to Okinawa? Is my wife from Okinawa? Have I been there many times? Do I like Okinawa? And I realized that they're trying to establish that I'm actually going to build a house that my wife and I are going to live in. My main bank probably looked at my application and saw like there's a pool in the design. Aside from the master bedroom, there's 2 guest rooms. The house is very large. It's quite large for just a married couple in Japanese sensibilities. So my main bank probably thought, this guy's career is in Tokyo, his wife lives in Singapore, they just want an investment property in Okinawa. They want an Airbnb, short-term rental. They're not actually going to live there, so they don't want to offer me a residential mortgage loan for that kind of property. You might be thinking, well, why don't they just offer you a different type of loan with a higher interest rate for an Airbnb kind of property? And I think after the pandemic, banks are just uninterested in investing in those kind of things. With one new virus, the world can stop traveling, tourists will stop coming to Japan, and anybody who has an Airbnb or inn or small hotel is really suffering from lack of business. So they're just not interested in that kind of loan or anything that even smells like that. So please keep this story in mind. If you're trying to buy property or a home far away from where you're living right now, a place that might be considered, a tourist location, maybe it's near the beach or a ski area or something like that, just keep in mind that the bank wants to establish that you're going to actually move there and live there. In the end, what I did with the Okinawan Regional Bank was just make a statement explaining why these things make sense to us. Why do we need a large house like this? Why do we have 2 guest bedrooms? Why do we want a pool in our house? We just explain with personal reasons why this makes sense to us, and we promise that this is not an investment property. So that's something you might want to do if you face similar problems. Okay, that's it for this episode. Thanks very much for watching. I hope it was useful for you. If you are a foreigner who's gotten a mortgage in Japan, please drop your wisdom down below in the comments. It's kind of a mysterious process with a lot of variables, so I think it'd be nice if we could all share our successes together. And if it's the first time for you to visit the channel, it might be fun to go back to episode 1 and see this whole journey my wife and I are on right now, buying land in Okinawa, looking for a builder, architect, and starting the process of building our house. I'm actually not in Tokyo right now where I live. I'm not in Okinawa either. I'm in Singapore where my wife lives and works, visiting her for about a month. So in my next video, I think I'll just show you some scenes from life in Singapore. Until that time, hope you're doing well. See you next time.